When my wife sat me down and suggested we part ways on friendly terms, I understood immediately what she was really saying. That word, friendly, wasn't meant to comfort. It was calculated. When a woman adds friendly to the word divorce, she's not thinking kindly. She's thinking tactically. It means she wants to keep you within arm's reach, a fallback option, while she explores whatever else the world has to offer. Her speech felt scripted. She wore this practiced look of concern while explaining how we drifted apart and how she needed time to find herself. But here's the twist. She kept stressing how much she still cared for me and how vital it was that we stayed friends. Every word rang with warning bells. I sat across from her listening, and honestly, I almost laughed. A woman doesn't bring up divorce because she's unhappy. She brings it up when she's already halfway out the door. Either there's someone new waiting in the wings, or she's itching to roam without the guilt of cheating. That friendly tone? It's just her way of keeping the door cracked open in case her next move flops. But instead of pleading or reacting the way she likely anticipated, I caught her off guard. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "Sure, let's do it." Her face went pale. She didn't expect me to agree, especially not so calmly. She immediately started to retreat. "Don't you want to think about it more? Maybe we could try therapy first." But I was already finished. If she wanted out, I wasn't going to hold the door shut. No arguments. No begging. No humiliating attempts to change her mind. The following weeks were, to put it lightly, odd. While the divorce process moved forward, she kept showing up in strange ways, texting me about small things, offering to meet for coffee to talk through stuff, even suggesting she help me search for a new apartment. I didn't bite. My replies were short, focused solely on logistics. Nothing more. What really got under her skin was my composure. I wasn't unraveling. I wasn't clinging. I treated the whole ordeal like a professional exchange, because that's what it was. Occasionally, she'd drop comments like, "You seem so okay with all this," clearly hoping to stir up some emotion. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. Truth is, the moment she brought up that so-called friendly divorce, she revealed everything I needed to know about who she'd become. She wasn't trying to stay friends. She was trying to keep control. She wanted to roam free while keeping me emotionally tethered and available. That's not friendship. That's manipulation. When it came time to sign the final papers, she looked annoyed that the process had gone so smoothly, like she'd been waiting for some grand meltdown or a last-minute plea. But I just signed, shook hands with the lawyer, and walked out. No theatrics. No emotional display. Just closure. The divorce was finalized in 6 weeks. Quick. Clean. Exactly the kind of friendly she had requested. What she didn't anticipate was that I had my own definition of friendly, and it didn't involve keeping ties with someone who had already made it clear how little the marriage meant to her. 2 weeks after everything was finalized, I truly began moving forward. While she filled her social media with vague posts about new chapters and rediscovering herself, I was focused on something more tangible. There was a woman I'd known for years, someone from our shared social circle. She was technically a friend of my ex-wife's, but we'd always had good rapport whenever we crossed paths. During my marriage, I noticed a difference. She listened, asked thoughtful questions, remembered things I'd said. She noticed details my wife never bothered with. About a week after the papers were signed, I reached out to her. No grand gesture, just a message asking if she'd like to catch up over coffee. Her reply came quickly. She was genuinely glad to hear from me. When we met, the conversation flowed easily. She asked how I was doing, and I gave her an honest answer. I was doing well. Actually, better than expected. She nodded, then said something that stuck with me. "To be honest, I always thought you deserved more." She never seemed to see what she had. That comment lingered. Here was someone who'd witnessed my marriage from the outside and saw what I'd been going through. She told me how she'd noticed the dismissiveness of my ex-wife's tone, the way she flirted with other men at gatherings, even when I was right there. From that point on, we started seeing each other more often. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner into long, meaningful conversations. She was everything my ex wasn't: sincere, present, attentive. She didn't just take, she invested. And while our connection deepened, my phone continued lighting up with texts from my ex-wife. How are you? Saw something that reminded me of you. We should catch up sometime. Each message was another attempt to keep a thread alive, but I kept my replies brief. No warmth, no openings, delayed responses, and no encouragement to keep the exchange going. She just wouldn't quit, somehow convinced that our friendly split meant she still had a place in my life. The difference between her and the woman I was now spending time with couldn't have been more obvious. My ex was trying to maintain some vague pseudo-friendship through half-hearted texts. Meanwhile, I was having real conversations with someone who genuinely enjoyed being around me. At one point, she even suggested lunch. As friends, of course. But I knew what that really meant. After a few more weeks, the woman I'd been seeing told me something interesting. Apparently, my ex-wife had been asking around, mutual friends mostly, trying to find out what I was up to, who I was spending time with. She was getting agitated that I was no longer keeping her in the loop. That's when I knew she was panicking. Her idea of a friendly divorce had backfired. I wasn't sitting around, waiting for crumbs of connection. I was building something new, something real, with someone who actually wanted to be there. The woman I was seeing understood it all. She had seen my ex's behavior during the marriage and wasn't surprised. And she made it clear she wasn't about to hide what we had just to spare my ex-wife's feelings. By the end of that month, our connection had turned into something solid. She was clever, honest, and refreshingly straightforward. With her, I felt seen again, not like a fallback, but like someone who mattered. By the 5th week after the divorce, things had grown serious. We weren't casually dating anymore. We were building a life. She was practically living with me, and for the first time in years, my home actually felt like home. She cooked dinner without being asked. Remember little things I mentioned in passing. Asked about my day, and actually care about the answer. When I walked through the door, she smiled just because she was happy to see me. Not because she needed anything, but because she truly enjoyed my presence. Eventually, we decided it was time to stop keeping things under wraps. Why pretend? I was divorced, she was single, and we were two adults making decisions about our own lives. There was no shame in that. Our first time stepping out together publicly was deliberate. We chose a familiar restaurant, a place we knew our shared social circle often frequented. She looked stunning, but more than that, she radiated joy just being by my side. We walked in hand, sat close during the meal, and behaved like the couple we now were, relaxed, affectionate, real. The news traveled fast. By the next morning, my phone was buzzing. Mutual acquaintances were calling and messaging. Most congratulatory, though a few carried an awkward tone, clearly unsure how to react. That's when I discovered something unexpected. Through a mutual friend, I learned that my ex had been spinning a different story, telling others that she and I were still talking things through and trying to maintain a friendship. What I found out next added even more clarity. Apparently, while I'd been quietly moving on, she'd been busy entertaining several new connections. In just a month since our split, she'd been spotted with at least 3 different men, including one who had hovered around the edges of our marriage during its final year. So much for soul searching. It all fit. The whole amicable divorce pitch had been a cover, a guilt-free way for her to test new waters while keeping me emotionally tethered as her fallback. Classic case of wanting the benefits of freedom without the cost of accountability. When I shared this with my girlfriend, she just chuckled. Honestly, she said, I figured that's what she was doing. She's always been like that. Loved the attention, hated commitment. What struck me most was how different this new relationship felt. With my ex, I was always trying to earn a place in her world, constantly reaching for affection or validation. With this woman, I felt chosen, not out of convenience, but because she genuinely valued what we were building. We began attending more social events together. She introduced me to her friends with pride, and I returned the favor. No hesitation, no apologies. We weren't hiding from anyone, especially not from my ex. That's when the texts from my ex-wife picked up in frequency and tone. They became less casual, more pointed. She started asking straight-out questions about my whereabouts and who I'd been seeing. When I didn't offer details, she shifted tactics. Heard you were at that new spot downtown. Was it any good? Clearly fishing. But I stuck to my boundaries. Short responses, minimal engagement. I could sense her frustration growing. The so-called friendly divorce wasn't unfolding the way she'd envisioned. Instead of me lingering in the background, I was living fully, and she wasn't part of that picture. My girlfriend recognized the pattern immediately. She'd seen it for years. The manipulative charm, the controlling tactics disguised as concern, rather than being shaken by it. She found it amusing. By the end of that week, everyone in our circle had seen us together. There was no more ambiguity. We were clearly a couple, happy, open, and completely unbothered by who knew it. Then came the real test, a birthday gathering for a mutual friend. I knew my ex would be there, but that didn't change anything. I wasn't going to avoid the event or hide my relationship just to preserve her comfort. We walked in together, and the shift in the room was instant. My ex-wife stood across the venue, and the moment she saw us, her expression morphed. Shock, anger, confusion. Then that calculated smile she always wore when she was trying to maintain control. We mingled naturally, greeting friends, laughing, blending into the group. My girlfriend was confident and warm, engaging people easily. She wasn't trying to provoke, just being herself. But my ex couldn't help herself. She kept drifting toward our conversations, orbiting like a satellite desperate to pull focus. Whenever we were chatting in a group, she'd insert herself, loiter nearby, or laugh just a bit too loudly. I remained cordial, giving her a brief nod when our paths crossed, but made no effort to engage. About an hour into the event, she finally made her move. She approached while we were speaking with another couple and immediately tried to take over the discussion, launching into a drawn-out story about her job. It was obvious she wanted to reclaim attention, to prove she still had relevance. My girlfriend handled it gracefully. She listened, nodded at the right moments, and didn't give my ex anything to work with. No reactions, no resistance. But I saw the game. My ex was testing the waters, trying to gauge how much space she still occupied. Then came the passive-aggressive charm. "It's really lovely to see you both," she said, sugary sweet. "You look happy." The implication was clear. She viewed our happiness as either performative or temporary. I met her gaze and replied flatly, "Thanks. We are." Short, direct, no warmth, no invitation to continue the conversation. But she kept hovering. Every time we turned around, she was nearby, jumping into discussions, laughing too hard, trying to pull focus. It was like watching someone try and convince the room they hadn't lost control. The most telling moment came when my girlfriend excused herself to use the restroom. Immediately, my ex-wife swooped in. "This is unexpected," she said, trying to sound casual but failing. "Didn't think I'd see you two here, together." I looked her straight in the eye. "Why wouldn't we be? We're dating." She blinked. "I just thought maybe you'd give me a heads up or something. I mean, we agreed to stay friends, right?" And right there it hit me. She still believed she had a say in my choices. "We're divorced," I replied calmly. "I don't need to run my personal life by you anymore." Before she could say anything else, my girlfriend returned and joined the conversation like nothing had happened. My ex's face tightened. She had expected tension, maybe even a scene. Instead, she found herself the odd one out, uninvited and unnecessary. The rest of the night followed the same rhythm. My ex circled, interrupted, inserted herself, all while trying to act unaffected. But it was obvious she was rattled. Meanwhile, my girlfriend and I carried on, unbothered and completely at ease. As we left the party, I caught one final glance from across the room. My ex stood alone, staring at us with a puzzled look, as if she were trying to solve a riddle that kept slipping away from her. She'd fought hard for freedom she wanted, but she'd forgotten that freedom went both ways, and I'd used mine to move forward without her. 2 weeks later came the inevitable explosion. We were invited to a relaxed backyard barbecue at a friend's place. Just another Saturday get-together. As usual, my girlfriend and I arrived together. Shared smiles mingled comfortably. But when my ex-wife showed up an hour late, I sensed a shift immediately. She wasn't just irritated. She was wound tight, checking her phone constantly, drinking more than usual. Her energy was tense, erratic. It didn't take a genius to figure out what was going on. She'd been stewing over the last party. And something told me this wasn't going to end quietly. For the first hour, she managed to keep up appearances. But the pressure was clearly mounting. Her eyes kept flicking our way. And whenever someone praised my girlfriend or commented on how happy we looked, I noticed her jaw tense just a bit tighter. It all boiled over while my girlfriend and I were chatting with a small group by the pool. We were sharing a light-hearted moment, laughing, my arm resting casually around her waist. It felt effortless, like we truly belonged in that space together. Out of nowhere, my ex came marching over, breaking into the conversation with an abrupt, "This is absurd." Her voice was loud enough to cut through the chatter around us. Conversations nearby fell silent. All eyes turned to her. My girlfriend and I glanced at each other calmly, choosing not to react. She continued, louder this time. "Do you two actually think this is okay? Parading around like this is some kind of win." The crowd was now fully tuned in. A few people pulled out their phones, sensing drama about to unfold. I stayed steady and spoke clearly. "What's wrong with two single adults being together?" I asked, holding her gaze. That question seemed to shatter whatever composure she had left. "Single?" she snapped. "We just signed the papers. And now you're suddenly with one of my friends? How is that not a complete betrayal?" My girlfriend moved slightly closer, saying nothing but letting her presence speak volumes. "We agreed to part peacefully," I said, projecting just enough for everyone to hear. "You asked for freedom, and I respected that. The same freedom applies to me." Her voice rose again. "But we said we'd stay friends." I paused. The moment had arrived, and I was ready for it. Friends don't ask for a divorce just to explore their options while keeping the door open for return. I replied, "You wanted space to do whatever you pleased. Well, here it is. You got exactly what you asked for." The silence that followed was heavy. I could see people processing what I just said, the real reason behind her so-called friendly split. She tried to come back with something. "That's not, I never said." "You didn't need to." I cut in. "Your behavior over the last month made everything crystal clear. While you were dating other men, you were still texting me like we were just taking a break. That's not friendship. That's keeping a safety net." My girlfriend gently squeezed my hand, still silent, but fully present, and that meant more than any words could. My ex looked around, clearly hoping someone would jump in on her behalf, but no one moved. "The truth's out now," I said simply, "and it's not painting you in the best light." Her finger trembled slightly as she pointed at me. "This isn't over," she said sharply. I met her stare with calm finality. "It ended the moment you chose divorce. Everything after that was your decision. Own it." She turned abruptly, grabbed her things, and left. No goodbyes, no grace. The group slowly dissolved, but the whispers had already started. By the next morning, everyone would know exactly what went down and why. The following day, I made some choices that closed the book on my passive good. Her meltdown had revealed more than any conversation could, and I had no interest in pretending we still had a connection worth maintaining. First, I blocked her number and scrubbed her from all my social media. No more passive-aggressive check-ins or attempts to stay in my orbit. If she needed to reach me, she could do it through my lawyer. Then, I trimmed my contacts. Anyone who had been feeding her info under the guise of neutrality was removed. They weren't being peacemakers. They were just enabling her to keep tabs on me. My girlfriend supported every move. She'd witnessed everything and understood the damage continued contact could cause. Letting go of the past meant letting go of the people who kept trying to drag me back into it. By the end of that week, my phone was noticeably quieter. No more phishing texts. No more updates about what she was doing or who she was with. Just peace. And then came the big decision. My girlfriend had been offered a promotion that required relocating to another state. The thought of starting over somewhere completely fresh, that sounded perfect. By then, we'd been together for close to 2 months, and our connection had deepened beyond casual dating. We were building something real, something that couldn't flourish in a town filled with old ghosts. The new city was 3 states away, far enough to escape the noise. My ex could continue chasing short-term validation from anyone who'd give her attention, but I'd be far removed from that loop for good. 2 weeks before the move, I bumped into an old mutual acquaintance at the grocery store. He looked uneasy, but eventually told me my ex had been asking around about me, whether I was really leaving town, if the move was permanent. Apparently, it had finally hit her. Her backup plan was gone for good. The friendly divorce had blown up in her face. What she thought was a graceful exit had actually nudged me into something far more meaningful, with someone who genuinely appreciated me. He also mentioned she was struggling in the dating world. Turns out, the guys eager to pursue a newly single woman weren't exactly looking for commitment. The greener grass she'd imagined was mostly weeds. I nodded politely, said nothing. Her regrets weren't mine to carry. Moving day came fast. We'd found a beautiful place in our new city, and the energy felt different, clean, hopeful, full of possibility. As we packed the final boxes into the truck, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Excitement. Not just relief, but real anticipation for what was ahead. Exactly 3 months after she asked for a friendly divorce, I was heading into a new chapter with someone who chose me for the right reasons. Someone who stood by me, not because she needed a fallback, but because she saw something real in us. The message was clear. When someone shows you who they are, believe them. My ex had shown me she wanted freedom more than commitment, and I respected that. But she didn't expect me to use that same freedom to truly move on. That was her lesson to learn, not mine to fix. As we hit the road toward our next adventure, my girlfriend reached across the center console and laced her fingers through mine. "Any second thoughts?" she asked, smiling. I glanced at her, then at the open road ahead, and answered with complete honesty. "Not even one."